it says like that there's a show scheduled to go live. It doesn't say that this time. I'm just taking a look at our page right now.
So what I'm going to do now, Kyle, is I'm just going to take a slide. We'll call it pre-show. I can go clip that out later, but just remember that we're actually possibly live in a couple places. So mind your mind where we are, where what we discuss. So yeah, that's now, and I am trying to figure out.
All right, so we're live. Welcome to Digitized, Unlock Your Digital Potential. We are early today by about 15 minutes if you are watching, and this may even get clipped out, but if you are watching, then as you know, we bear it all out there. We put it all out there. This is like digital therapy, which is figuring out how things work in real time. So, watch us on the psychology sofa as we figure things out, as Kent is.
It's not a sofa, Kyle. We have a shiny new table.
Oh, that's how we have a shiny new table.
Yeah, we have a shiny new table. So
we're gonna have to at one point maybe take ourselves out to the countryside and
next time.
We'll do that next time. It'll be a picnic with your favorite digitized hosts, and we'll be eating all things digital, digital sandwiches, digital snacks, digital beverages.
I have to stop YouTube. Just so you know, this is all for YouTube. YouTube is forever messing around and making things hard. So we now have, Kyle, what YouTube reports as an excellent connection,
Excellent.
as opposed to the prior not so excellent connection. They said our stream was poor, and I was super offended. But there you go. They're kind of right, but it's like we need more likes than subscribes to get away from poor. But I think that in general, we should be sort of ramping up. So over the next few minutes, I will bring on the other channels, and over time, we'll get this so it's just a flick of a switch. But like Kyle said, if you're watching right now, cool. We're learning as we go, and we're sharing a lot of what we learn. So just enjoy the show, and it's all good. Now, on Studio Monitor on YouTube, I see a black screen. That cannot be good.
For those that are watching, we are going to be, and we'll bring this up again at the top of the hour, but we're going to be diving into a spectrum of, and what we mean by inbound is how can Digitize support you and your company, whether you're small, whether you're large, as an organization. What we're going to be covering off today is all the different types of formats that we've seen as like the big flagship formats that we're being pinged for, or that organizations are looking to use in the digital realm in terms of bringing and gathering people together to be able to distribute their information, advance their brand, or attract and acquire new customers, or push out their special offers and things like that. Because of course, with store traffic having gone radically down, so physical store traffic, just because we're still, although states are opening up, we're still in a quarantine. Online traffic has substantially increased. I'm sure everybody's been watching the news about that, but also online events have substantially increased. One statistic just in the last week was that even just the platform of Zoom went from 10 million daily users to over 300 million daily users. So that will give you an example across many, many other platforms. I just attended a Miro webinar this week, and they were also saying that they have seen exponential uh, return on the amount of new subscriptions, and that's like a collaboration tool. They've seen such crazy returns that there's been a forcing function on them to be able to advance and create new functionality and features, because of course they have more revenue coming in. They've got more monthly subscribing revenue holders, and they have more users buying their services. So what's been very interesting for us is we need to be and continue to be at the forefront of advising clients as they come and say, I'm trying to achieve this type of experience. I have this particular task to solve for, whether it's doing something with their people, whether it's doing something strategically, whether it's creating something new, whether it's bringing people together to do information share or problem solve. They're asking for our advice on what are the various spectrums of platforms, applications that we would recommend that they use to be able to deliver a seamless experience. And so we have our clients are on a spectrum of knowledge, which is like this is super first time, that they're getting into digital world. And we've covered that a lot in our previous episodes. And if you go back into the page, you will also see that we've broken down, there's probably, 30 plus different soundbite videos on how you can empower yourself as a digital native now, as a newly created digital native, in different tools and techniques. But then we've also covered off so far ways that you can show up and lead successfully online, ways that you can start to plug into platforms and tools and methodologies. Kent's gone really deep on, certain aspects of technology, things that we can zone in on. We've got an episode there, which is alternatives to Zoom. Kent also took us on a great excursion even into virtual reality, where you can create an avatar and create meetings inside of that. So that's all content that's existing on the page. We're going to be a little more practical about that today. And just because we've got, a lot of businesses who are trying to just operate, and now that some have shrunk in size, they've had to shift workforce, or they've had to move to remote, they still have to do business as usual on a day-to-day. So what we'd like to do is just take you through a spectrum in the time that we have, from if you're a one person, trying to pull a small group of people together, what are a couple of options that you can use to make that super successful, all the way up to if you need to bring tens of thousands of people together across a multiple day experience and ram-pack that full of massive value and ideation. I hear me.
Sorry.
In the ether. Oh, it's good. Ram-pack that full of impact and motivation. We want to scale all the way up to that. So what you'll hear today are just really in real-time musings, because both myself and Kent, as we work with our digitized clients, that's one aspect. We are also involved in some other organizations that require us to bring our digital skills to the forefront. And so what we're acquiring is knowledge from the rooms that Kent and I get to be in right now, the conversations that we get to be in, whether we actively supporting that client, or whether we are just
Sorry.
Good.
Told you I was setting everything up still.
No, of course, this is it. Now I know what I sound like. I should go for vocal training. And it's
we both need that.
Pronounce my language.
Everybody tries to get rid of my Kentucky accent. I'm not okay with that.
Accents rule. That's part of the unique digital signature, right?
Yeah.
That takes us onto a good point. Just deviating real quick. I think that in the future, one thing that I'm paying very close attention to, and Ken, you and I haven't gone deep on this on a topic yet, but the thing especially in the innovation world that we've been dabbling in some of the innovation rooms we've been in, is people are asking, like, what's next? What's the next dimension for my brand? And the next dimension for the brand has always been, well, how do I visually, get eyeballs on my brand or my products? And at first it was, billboards and TV commercials and radio spots. And now it's, how do I just track algorithms and data and people's online usage happening so that, and of course, through the Alexas and the Series and everything else, where you have just, Kent and I could have just had a conversation about a tropical getaway after coronavirus is done and how we're going to take our families off to Hawaii or something. And then 30 minutes later, you open up a browser and there's hotels.com are giving you a special to Hawaii, so there's these things that are happening which are pushing our branding forward. The next level, I think, is going to be this voice automation, which is it's going to be when you think of digital breakthroughs and you ask Alexa, I need a digital breakthrough, and she's going to respond, well, dialing digitized. We're going to have to get to that's the level that's probably going to be next. And I think our voices and our language are going to be a huge part of our digital signature. So that's where it's going to be interesting that people are going to have those incredibly different, where that unique part of the voice is going to have to happen. Those are cool titles, Ken. I love those.
I made that for you today. So here
That's,
comes yours. There you go, Kyle.
Here we go.
You were telling me you wanted titles, so I said, you know what? I'm going to get Kyle some titles.
I want some titles. Otherwise, I'm just sitting in the black abyss, and I don't know who I am anymore.
Check it out, though. It's my turn. Hang on. So,
yeah, so
here we go. Great. Click over here.
Boom.
Really. Oh, there we go. So we are T minus 7 minutes, and I appreciate the live testing and streaming and stuff. So we're gonna start the show soon, everybody. This is always fun, and if you haven't been watching this show very long, Kyle, much to his annoyance and delight sometimes, he'll know that I'm literally 100% of the time always experimenting with something when we're doing this. And today's experiment was, okay, can I literally have everything set up, ready to go, and then go live exactly on the minute? Miserable failure. However, what I did just learn, Kyle, while you were talking, was I embedded our stream on the Digitized.live website. Now, I did it super fast, and so it looks like the formatting might be off just a little bit, but that's pretty neat. And that's a new beta version of one of the video distribution points that we use. So I was able to actually do that for the first time today. I did not have that available to me in previous shows, so I just threw that in there. So that means that today we're streaming live on Kent Langley, my Periscope account, my Twitch account, and my Facebook account, because we're testing these multi-stream options. And then also we're streaming, of course, live on the usual, which is the Digitized Live channel, which is kind of the official channel for Digitized Live. And I think that's super exciting. And we will over time be adding many more syndications, I think, of the stream. So pretty exciting stuff. And I'll try now to stay out of the tabs because that's where you were getting the feedback. And we should be pretty good to go for this show, Kyle.
Yeah, I am just gone on simultaneously to take a look at YouTube and to take a look at our Digitized Live, and there it is, live streaming. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I see that feeding in from Twitch right now, actually, which is excellent. So, constantly pushing the boundaries, constantly checking out some new things. I see one update we can make for our guests today as well is that on our Digitized.live website, you'll know that we've been reflecting on a large event that Kent and the team produced called EXO World. There's another event showing up called EXO Now on May. So we'll update that on the Digitized Live website as well, where you can get access to that. That's going to be a 1 day versus a 3 day. So that's going to be very exciting. And that's where you actually, for those of you that are watching this, that is a very powerful way, apart from the extraordinary talent that shows up for these events and that speak at these events and the breakthroughs that are unlocked there and the incredible conversations that are unlocked there. It also gives you a very powerful demonstration for those that are a fan of this show and enjoying watching what we're doing and how we're doing it. that is a really great event to attend, where you see all of this work that we're talking about happening in real time live. And what that should really do is spark possibilities and curiosity in you to be able to think about your own companies and your own brands and your own personal identities and what you can do to express. And we cover a lot of we demystify and pull back the curtain on this show about what goes on in these things. And so, as we mentioned today, one of those things that we'll be doing is talking about the different formats, and we'll end up at the end of that formats, that spectrum with the large conference, and then we'll be able to come back around and talk a little bit more about that. Ken can talk about that.
I made that video, Kyle. Did you get a chance to see that one I sent you via WhatsApp, the 4-up sample?
Yes.
That was super cool. We can show that.
Yeah. So in terms of what you can do from a technical perspective when you are looking to bring people together.
Well, that one was neat because when we're talking about the different formats, that one was neat because 3 of the guests were in India. The host was in Canada, Toronto, and I was in the San Francisco Bay Area in the studio. So, I mean, it's a pretty darn good example of possible. So
it sure is.
It is something we can do. I'll queue it up in case we want to use it later.
Yeah, it's a good one as well. Just had a look there to the side. So we've got an exciting show again today, and we've probably T-minus a couple minutes before we go live at 10.
2 minutes. We'll start the show on time. You've got to get me that music that you made, Kyle, so I can also cue the music too when we start our show. Because we've been going in silently because I don't have the music, but I know you made us some really nice intro music that we've been using for our pre-rolls. But we should bring that into this world too. I'm not going to do it today in 1 minute, but next time. Music.
Next time we'll get that queued up. Let's see. And then there is our live now tab. And we can jump in so we can watch that. We'll turn the sounds off so we can see the 2 feeds running, which is excellent. So, and Kent, how many platforms are we going live to today? We are YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Periscope, right?
Periscope and our own website. So 5.
And our website. 5. That's
5.
Multicasting.
Well, I mean, this is the new syndication, right? And you do it yourself, which is kind of interesting. So that's another way to think about all this as well.
And smile for a second because I'm going to do this and take us to say that we are live right now.
Selfie? Is that a selfie?
That's a selfie of a selfie of 5. I don't know what they call it.
I don't know what that is.
They call that a fractal.
A digitized selfie. Well, all right, Kyle. Look, we're T-minus about 30 seconds. So you watch the clock, please. Take us live. I've got 1 or 2 more things to queue up, and then I'll be ready to rock and roll. I'm really excited about today's topic. So
excellent. All right. So T-minus 1 minute. Cueing the subliminal music. So for those of you that got to join us, ahead of time, there we go.
Oh,
it is time.
We got it. That's our music.
That's our music. It is time to go live. Welcome to Digitized.live, where we help you unlock your digital potential. I am one of your hosts, Kyle Hermans, and we have your co-host, Kent Langley. Hi, Kent. How are you doing today?
Hey, Kyle. I am good. As you know, I've had a full morning of experimentation and fun. Getting us live on 5 platforms simultaneously while somehow making all this stuff work. But it's been awesome. I actually enjoyed the pre-show today. I don't know. Maybe we should just do a little pre-show action every time. That was really fun.
Yeah. So for those of you that just tuned in now, and if we go live, depending on the edit, you can watch the pre-show. We got into some other topics and some other talk as we were testing in real time. So welcome to the show. Today's going to be a good one, action-packed, super fast and fiery. We have a particular topic that has been top of a lot of people's mind, and it's actually been one of the priority topics that we've been receiving in the last few weeks. As you know, we didn't go live last week because we had our big event, and
a
week before that, yeah, we had a big event. Since then, what's been very exciting for Digitized is the level of inbound, because what happened at that event is it started to increase the aperture of possibility for people all around the world that attended. There were over 3,000 people that attended that event, and from different levels of organization, different levels of leadership all around the world. But what that's happened from an inbound, and what we're going to be packaging up today in this program, are a spectrum of needs of what people are asking for. And what they're asking for is they are starting to become early adopters and digital natives in terms of the forcing function of needing to get into the digital world more. And
all right. Folks, welcome back.
And yeah, that's an example of something that we'll be sharing with you a little later.
Turn off
that
live. Got it.
So an example of that'll be an example of panels that we will get into later with some of our constructs. What we're going to be talking about we're going to start on the spectrum. If you're an individual trying to rally a team together, what are the right platforms? What are the right things? We're not going to double down on any one specific thing. What we want to do is give you our experience of what does and doesn't work, and what we think has been delivering the best experiences. So and you'll see what Ken's put up behind us here, is we want to touch on a few things that we're offering to our clients and that we have to advise our clients on. So some would be things around webinars, which are, hey, I've got this hour with people. I'm either running a meeting, I've got a webinar, or I'm trying to keep my customer base happy, or I'm trying to attract in more talent. Maybe you have had a business that had subscribers. Maybe you had a business that had a lot of store traffic. And now what you're trying to do is keep people engaged, keep people informed. Webinars are really great. Programs are, in our world, usually things that are single day to multi-day, which is where you're doing trainings and things. Conferences, of course, are conferences, multi-day things. Summits are where you and your business are bringing a lot of people together to either discuss a particular topic or a series of topics, which are generally formatted for making impact beyond that summit. Of course, trainings are if you are in the business of empowering people or empowering your internal workforce, and then just general workshops. For us, workshops could be anything from, hey, I just got to bring some people together to make some decisions, to do some information share, to problem solve something. So within these formats, we're just going to have this one up here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about starting small. What are the small things where you can get fast, effective things, and then dive in. Yeah, Ken, jump in.
Just a quick thing. Something that actually happened on one of our recent events was pretty fantastic. It was a multi-day summit, and it was just super fun. Like, people were just having a blast, and everybody kept going, this is not a summit. This is not a summit. It's a festival. This is like when I go to a music festival. I'm having that feeling, and that was really incredible. We didn't expect that, and I think that one of those summits that we just did, we'll probably rebrand it a festival later, so you can put summit/festival if you want, maybe for another edition.
I mean, you know this, that we experimented, even in our hobby lives. I'm a huge fan of live music, performing live music, and we were invited to a digital festival, and we were actually looking to bring Digitized and Kent and the team to problem solve something that a lot of digital musicians or musicians that are trying to still do shows and still keep their fan bases. And this is another one, is the latency effect between a visual and audio, and how those two things can sync up, and how they can actually work with other musicians who are remote on different levels of internet connection. And that's a very interesting thing. I think when they problem solve this one, the festival scene, and I think you're really onto something there, Ken, as usual, being ahead of that one, is that this idea of the festival is so powerful, because usually festivals have to be sort of pre-recorded with bands, and then they'll sort of air the pre-recording. But the live piece is just such a massive problem to solve for. That's going to be fascinating when that happens. So festivals itself is going to be absolutely, I think, its own container here, because you're going to have to advise people on how they can successfully bring musicians together from other parts of the world and then play succinctly together.
I've actually been working on that since we really did the first test, and it was really to learn. And as many things go, when you try something new, it didn't work, but that's not the point. The point was we tried and we learned what did and didn't work, and we also got a lot of feedback from people on the that were inputting to the session. I thought that was just as fascinating as anything. But I've been thinking a lot about that, and I do think I have an idea for a way to do that, but it's a fairly substantial chunk of work. But we'll have to talk about that later. The other thing is to remember that all of these things that you're seeing on the internet right now, on television right now, like these kind of online music events where you're seeing people in what look like Zoom windows, those are all pre-recorded. So they're recording all of those segments and then they're remixing them and then they're broadcasting the mix and that's great. You should absolutely do that if that's the output you want. And it does give the illusion of liveness, but really actually going live when you have one person on Wi-Fi, one person on, you run into physics and things like that. And I really do think I have an idea for how to sort that, but it's complicated. But let's
let's dive in.
Yeah,
let's dive in. So
I want to
let's start on the simple ones, and I'll flip it over to you, Ken, to kick us off with this one. So we've got our usual hot favorite. So let's think of the idea we can play, and webinar doesn't have to be the only thing. But if we're trying to just get teams together on a daily basis and run things successfully, we've got some big favorites, but we also need some alternatives because there's obviously scalability issues. What we're noticing is that some of the traditional platforms are breaking a little bit. They're having to fix themselves with the inflow of new subscribers. So if we were advising people, let's take it from, let's go super basic, and then we go to professional, and then we go to premier. So if we took basic and said,
we have like an hour, so yeah.
Yeah. So just the simplest systems that people can use to have really good digital interactions with somebody else that's more than one person, but maybe less than 50. What are some things that we would recommend that we've been seeing are the most effective platforms to be using?
Okay, so I still think, despite all the things that you're hearing that are negative, if you're going to do an event that, like an actual event, where you maybe even want to stream it live to something like YouTube or Facebook, it's still pretty hard to beat Zoom. And yes, you're going to hear all the negative press because the press is kind of bored with COVID-19, so they will jump on anything. And as long as you follow the rules, if you've got old Zoom meetings and standing meetings, recurring meetings, delete those things, make new ones, use the password feature and the waiting room feature, you're going to be just fine. You're not going to end up with a bunch of Zoom bombers doing bad stuff to you. And Zoom has features that most people don't know about under the hood, but you get to through the actual web interface. For example, YouTube or Facebook streaming are things that you can do. I was just on a webinar where they didn't use Zoom meetings, but they used Zoom webinar on Sunday. It was hosted out of Australia. There were 8 of us on a panel with a moderator, so 9 people, and it was rebroadcast into Facebook, where then it got tagged all over the place. So that was really cool. It's hard to beat that experience. Now, if you don't want to pay the money for Zoom or a Zoom webinar, then you need to start looking at other alternatives. We've reviewed Jitsi in the past. I continue to get good feedback from the people who saw that episode and use it because it's fast and it's free. And if you want, you can deploy it across your whole enterprise as an open source product with support from the company that makes it. So that's great. It's going to sound, this is almost heresy if you know me well, but I'm not a big fan of Skype, okay? However, in the advent of this new digital world, Microsoft and some of their enterprise stuff around Teams has actually stepped up a little bit. And I have been seeing some decent results there. And then another one that just came out, I haven't even had a chance to try it myself, but I'm curious because is Facebook's new offering.
Yeah.
Now, if you're doing something that's B2C or free or nonprofit or open, you know what? That's the biggest audience on the planet. So you may want to look at your venue choice as a function of how you wish to reach people. It is literally a channel, right? And so that's why we're experimenting Kyle, with being able to stream into many things. If I wanted to, I could also be streaming this into a Zoom call with a bunch of guests somewhere, or a webinar at the same time as we're broadcasting live in 5 different places. These types of capabilities people don't quite understand. So your choice of platform equals your choice of venue and your choice of broadcast channel. That's new.
That's fantastic. There's something that I've noticed just recently where in more smaller, intimate groups, firewalls have become a big problem. So if you're watching this and you're inside of a legacy company, one of the things that legal has to pay attention to, of course, because of data and all those kinds of things. So where Zoom has got a really bad racket over the last few weeks, you're right. What I noticed is people jump from Zoom back to Skype for Business, or to Crowdcast was another one that I've seen people really seen them doubling down. I've dabbled with Crowdcast some, which is quite fun, and it can scale to massive audiences, but it doesn't allow the same level of interactivity. Yeah, go for it, Ken.
I have 2 more. I'm sorry. You just reminded me. So a long-standing platform that is very, very solid. To me, the interface feels a little dated, but if you want to just rock solid delivery of a reasonably interactive webinar-like experience with some additional features, go look at On24. If you pay on an annual basis, it's not crazy, and you can really do some interesting things there. One of the vendors we work with, Telestream, is a heavy On24 user, so you can experience that just by going and watching some of Telestream's webinars. You'll experience an On24 webinar. The other one is oh shoot, it went right out of my head. How can that go out of my head? Hopin. Kyle, you know that we're kind of very early, almost partners, I guess you'd say, of Hopin, and we've been running events on Hopin. Hopin's different. Hopin is when you really think you might need to replicate that physical venue environment, but in a digital space. And then there are degrees of which you can do that. If you just kind of use the native Hopin features, they are fantastic, and you can do incredible things. And you end up with a very, I call it a Google Hangouts-like experience overall. But then you can also, as we did at EXO World Summit a couple weeks ago, you can have a highly curated and produced experience as well on the Hopin platform that we're now really privileged and excited to be able to do for other folks. So I think that's a pretty long list there that we just gave. Let's make sure, Kyle, that we go back and put links to all those in the show notes. But on all the show notes will be on YouTube, and someday when we somehow manufacture more time, we'll also replicate all those show notes into the blog on the website. But the idea there, I think that you can literally do anything that you want with some or a combination of the list of platforms we just gave. Uh-oh. I think we might have lost Kyle. Not sure. See what's going on there. Yeah, we've lost Kyle. I'm gonna kick him off, and hopefully he'll come right back. All right, Kyle's been kicked off the air, so let me hide him briefly until he comes back, so we don't just see his frozen silhouette there, and we'll keep going. So what we just talked about was specifically, let me clear this. Sorry, folks. While I bring Kyle back, I have to do a little work on the back end. So we talked about I think that was about 6 different platforms that you can use in order to get yourself live, digitized, and online. So that was one part of today's talk. The other part was to look into the other venue pieces. So I'm going to go back now And I'm going to bring up that little diagram we had again. There we go. And what we really just talked about mostly were webinars. So let me re-invite Kyle. Hopefully he'll come right back. So webinars, that's kind of the one on the top left there. And then when I was talking about Hopin later, if you're going to be looking at summits or larger digital venues, then you're going to look at something like Hopin. Now, if you want to do training, we have had huge success with our clients using combinations of tools, primarily inside Zoom as a venue. So I literally just had a call with a major global broadcaster, and I'm pretty excited about this. I can't say what the show is and who it is yet, but the thing that they're actually doing is they're effectively pre-producing broadcasts using Zoom. And if you watch Some Good News on YouTube, which is a phenomenal show, really amazing piece of production on YouTube, you'll also see that they're using, I believe, a combination of Skype and Zoom in order to bring their guests in. So this is another way that you can do that. So I think in general, if you're going to be doing kind of a live situation, I'm just going to keep going on record and saying that you really cannot beat Zoom overall. It is one of the best. It's probably Kyle sending me a text message just to find out what's going on here. So enjoy the liveness. Check. Sorry, everybody. I've got to send Kyle a new email. This is too funny. New. All right, we'll see if we get him back. So there's that. So now let's talk about workshops. I'm just blowing through these, but it's okay. We'll dig deeper into examples, hopefully, when we get Kyle back. The workshop format. These are sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes they're a whole day or multi-day. One of the things that makes the workshop format huge is kind of like production value of the host and all of the speakers that are involved. So, oh, hey, look, there's Kyle. Let me see if I can get him back for us. One moment.
Dig deeper into examples.
Hey there, Kyle. Hey, everybody. I've got Kyle back in the studio, so that it's actually just going to take me a second. So please appreciate your patience and give me one moment.
It makes the work.
And Kyle, welcome back.
Back from the abyss.
What happened?
I got sucked out this black hole behind me that everybody can see over here. It just swooped me in. I think I got hit by one of the fractals, and I have no clue. But I guess what we just experienced right there is what it's like to, in a live environment, pull somebody in, go out, and keep going. But I was watching. I became a participant, and I got to listen and got to watch it.
While trying to run the show, I did my best to cover for us.
You did great. You did super great. Thanks for that.
What I do next? So I'll kind of like I'm gonna kind of kick back into this so that we get back on track. But I want to show the example that we queued up, Kyle, from a live show where we brought in 3 guests that were in different regions of India to a host who was in Toronto, in Canada, with me in the studio in the San Francisco Bay Area, engineering and producing behind the scenes. So when you see people with their earphones on in this video, they were literally hearing me when I needed to talk to them to tell them something, but you couldn't hear me usually. And and it was really cool. This is a short clip that I want to play. So Kyle, I'm going to do that, and then we'll jump back in to a combination maybe of like the summit, training, and conferences. And I think one of the most amazing places we could pick up when we come back from this is some of the experiences you've had with workshop formats using produced feed technology in your businesses and Digitized. So hold that thought while I roll this little clip.
Live streaming from somewhere to somewhere. We have an amazing set of guests with us. we've had over the last couple of nights panels on the future of China and Asia. We had an African panel actually queued up, and here is the view from India. I grew up in India, so I'm somewhat biased here. But Lakshmi, talk us through what's happening and what you folks are up to, and then as we
Right. So that little clip that you saw there, as I described, 3 people from India, 1 person from Toronto, Canada, Kent in the studio in California, and it was amazing. And the funniest thing that happened was that none of them had ever experienced that before. And when I brought them on, they had been behind the scenes with me, behind kind of a transition screen, and you heard the lady on the top right hand side, Lakshmi, you heard her go, wow, because she just had not experienced anything like that before. And Lakshmi happens to be one of the founders and people that runs a huge event series, a very TED-like event series called Inc. out of India, and she's a friend of OpenEXO and now a friend of Digitized as well. So Kyle, kind of over to you to talk again about some of those things.
What Kent's also describing there, which is if we want to get a little bit science fiction-y, is it's very interesting. Think of this as teleportation happening in real time. I know we say like we kind of already kind of have become very it's normal to, very quickly it's become normal to just be on webcams and things. But if you really think about what we are doing, this is taking the concept of the telephone call, which is, still a very young invention. I mean, it's been around a while, but we took, the wired telephone call to the wireless telephone call, to integrating video, to the point where we can start to curate and transport people from no matter where they are into an environment, and then broadcast that out to literally anybody that potentially has a screen with an internet connection. So if you just let that kind of sit with yourself for a second, it's like actually the possibilities are so massive that the only limitation that we have going forward, apart from the fact that bandwidth is increasing and internet speeds are increasing, the only limit we have is our imagination of what we could do with this, which is powerful. And so bridging that into some of the work that Kent and I do, that Digitized does, is we noticing this production format where you are curating an experience, like we've mentioned before, and you'll go back, this box that we're in right now, this box, the screen that you're watching us, before it had its limitations, but as you start to crack the code on it, the limitations disappear, and then what you do with it is pretty extraordinary where you can go. And we're experiencing that quite right now within workshops. So like say this morning, I was invited into sort of a high profile person that's running a mastermind group for his annual monthly mastermind folk. And I got to just drop in as a guest and talk a little bit about some of the topics that we are talking about here, but also in our other businesses. And the thing that was very interesting is just something so subtle as I usually use black on black. I'm on this white chair, I'm in a black shirt, I'm in the black background. Part of it, for any of you that have ever watched things like The Actors Studio, or, where people are interviewed and you have this very clean sort of artistic background, where the focus, and especially for me, because I have a bald head, so that's a bit of a signature. So how do you remove distractions around you and just place yourself on a very dramatic, darker, more contrasty background? Just that simple thing, and broadcasting through Zoom, as Kent's been sharing, you can literally take this and broadcast it into Zoom. Broadcasting into Zoom changes the dynamic of me as a presenter. It even changes the dynamic of the content that we're producing. So what's been quite interesting is there's been a few formats we've been playing with. We've gone in and we've run a keynote. So for anybody that has to go and deliver a talk, this is a very powerful way to effectively come into a meeting, remove the distractions. And as good as Zoom's green screen tech is, you'll notice for anybody that's playing with it right now, and I see it for most of the meetings we are, and everyone's kind of picked their background, this is great. So now we just moved to an office, which is really cool. So, Zoom's background, that when you have that deep etching going on, it's quite blotchy. If you move really quickly, it's blotchy. So what we're doing over here is, because we have the green screen tech and we have the chroma keying, and we're going into a broadcasting platform and then using that platform to broadcast into Zoom, it gives you a little more, well, it's not even a little more, it gives you a whole lot more of a leveling up. You just take yourself to another level in comparison to other folk. That starts to actually produce and provide a very powerful experience. So where that's worked very well, keynotes. If you're giving a webinar and you're a guest, or you're even a panelist, it really makes you stand out differently, just because it shows that you have some understanding and a strategic advantage of technology and how you're interacting with the space over some of the other folk around you. It's just, if you're into that brand, not that it's meant to be competition, but it's just, it really does elevate your look and feel. So if you care for that stuff, that's one way to do it. The other thing that I've been using it for is, and I'm sure Ken, what Ken is able to do with me here, I don't know if this is going to be hard for you, Ken. Could you make me really small for a second?
Oh,
could
sure.
you just shrink me down? Watch this. It's like, honey, I shrunk the kids.
You got it.
What he's able,
Okay, but
what
you
he's
have
able
to talk
to do
in a
with
really
this.
high-pitched voice. Are you ready?
Oh,
Okay, there you go.
I need the helium balloon right now. So what's interesting is getting super small, and then behind me, when you have access to this tech, you could project slides or things behind you, like he is right now. I'm sure maybe just even that webinar banner coming in, something like that. What that you're able to do is still stay very much engaged without losing the, like the share screen functionality, or with Skype for Business, you might actually lose visual of yourself completely. I just see the delay on the on the YouTube is running in the corner of my eye.
I'm having fun now. You started this. Just remember that.
Oh yeah, no, you go for it. Just as we're going through this, just mess around, do some strange things. There we go. Oh, perfect. Look at that. So wait, let me just get the angles right. Oh, it's this way. So imagine this. So I could even be like the width person. So let me talk to you about summits right now. There's summits, and then there's webinars over here. And then if we go a little bit further, we talk about trainings over there. So there's a way that you can start to even interact. I mean, I could even try and push the summit button.
That's awesome. I love it.
You know what I mean? Like, I actually, let me see. No, I'm going the wrong way. I wonder how far over I could go if I can reach trainings.
I can't work my window. You'd be a terrible weatherman.
I know, I'd be a terrible weatherman. I got to get I don't know my north from my south. But what this allows you to do, you can see in real time as we're going into these webinars, programs, conferences, things like that. There is when you get a little mastery of this, it's actually pretty powerful how you can still stay incredibly engaged with your audience. Like, I can still be very engaged with you here, and you're looking at content behind me at the same time. And then it's the same thing over here that, Kent and I are in different locations, but I can turn to him and go like, so Kent, tell me, like we could actually like have a conversation. Like, tell me what you,
I have a little sticky note on my window over there, and it says Kyle.
Oh, there Kyle is there. That's great. So you're pointing that I've got to do it over here. Yeah. I have a pot plant. So that's.
I like that. I'll take it.
So you're very organic here, but what's interesting with this is the value add that it is delivering to client experiences is 10x and above. It really is, because the content comes across in a new interactive way. It is breaking the paradigm of the old stodgy meeting. It is differentiating you. It is shifting up the dynamics. It makes it interesting again. It's the same way that we want to do Netflix and chill. We want to escape into stories and movies. There's a way that you can start to think about the production qualities of your experiences here with this way too, which is very powerful. So those are some of the things I've been learning. And again, I'll just recap real quick. I'm doing that with webinars, doing that with keynotes. This is the stuff that Kent and I are doing. We're actually even being asked to produce other people's webinars and other people's keynotes, which means we wouldn't be the ones, but what Kent would be doing in the team is actually bringing, like he just did to me when I got sucked into the abyss.
I just did that to you by putting you over one of your slides in a tiny little corner, but I was still here in that case. I can disappear and make you the star of the show. I mean, these are all kinds of fun things. And you know what, just before you continue on the summary, I want to point out what we're talking about took a long time to learn. So you are what we're doing right now, this is for you, it's like reading the book backwards. Okay? We're showing you the possibilities, and now, yes, you have to work your way back to get there, and over time we'll share more and more. But the fact is, some of this stuff's really new for us, and other things I've been doing personally, at least for at least 5 years. So reason I'm saying this is because I don't want people to get discouraged either. If you see some sorts of tricks or tools or transitions or production value on a show like this, I mean, a funny thing. Look at this set we're on right now. This is called a virtual set. Now, how does it work? Well, I took especially the one that I had a moment ago, where I had the blurred background. This was an open source image. You're the one that gave me the idea, Kyle, to do this. And if I replace the background like this, what I did was I took a single shot, I cut the thing in two, I put the table in front of us, I added the shots and the reflections that are you coming from your studio, me coming from my studio, and then the blurred background to recombine everything, but the colors are generally well matched and things like that. So it works. And I actually, I think it's really cool, and I was just playing around. And I didn't actually expect the little reflections here on the table to look so cool, but they really do. So something like that, I did this last week, first time ever, and it took me a couple of tries to get it right. And Kyle, I sent you the samples as I was playing around for my Twitch channel, because anybody who knows about my Twitch channel, you'll get to see pretty much. That's like the montage of all Kent's experiments with streaming, and they're usually little clips, and they're totally silly. Like I was experimenting the other day, Kyle, with remote live streaming cameras. So I was actually using an iPhone to stream into our broadcast software and out. And I sent you, you're probably like, what is wrong with this guy? I sent you a link called GoatCam 2020 because
I watched it.
There was a bunch of goats behind my house. And so I yelled for my son, Oliver. I was like, Oliver, come here. You're going to go host and produce a goat show. And a goat rodeo, I guess, and a real one, and he did. He totally took it, and he just jumped on it. He emceed the thing. I was super impressed.
It was great,
and it was just great fun, is what it was. So I just kind of want to mix that in there, because literally, that's now how I know the limits, by the way, of what that particular piece of technology I used can do and not do. And in that case, it's a lot. It's very restrictive, that particular piece. It was challenging to make Goat whatever that was, Goat Show 2020. But I should have open sourced it and made it Open Goat. But yeah, okay. Back over.
So so there's a thing here that, and Kent and I will always be referring back to, one of the interesting pieces about the birth of Digitized, and the world that Kent and I, the stages that we get to speak on, the audiences we get to motivate and educate, we are deep in the middles of real-time content that's happening, on a day-to-day basis, of seeing an analog world become digital, seeing technology impact every industry and not let anything out of its wake and its way. Whereas, if you think of any industry, like if we wanted to go get blood a long time ago, we would draw blood, you put on a little glass thing, you put the little glass thing under a microscope, and then that's how scientists would do it. Now they can literally, put something on the body, or even if you extracting it, they can see things digitally. They'll put it under digital molecule rendering and sampling. It's the same as, a traditional one that we all have, which is you'd carry around your cassette tapes or your albums, your LPs or your then CDs. Now you can carry around every song that will ever be made, has ever been made, in your pocket at real time, and it doesn't take up any space. This is all the concept of digitizing. And for us, every single business that we're interacting with, including our own, which is why this is one of those, sort of epiphanies that we had, is it's going to happen to us. So how do we get prepared for my business being made more efficient, made more cost effective, being made more, available to many more people have access? How is technology making that available for people? And it's doing it by digitizing it. It's doing it by finding a digital version of it. And so the thing that we are going to continually recommend to you, and as we've been going through this show about different formats, is that we recommend that you hold your own identity, your own brand identity, the outcome that you're trying to achieve, the purpose that you're trying to strive towards. How can you still live that out, knowing that you actually have access to greater impact and you have access to the ability to curate some pretty amazing experiences? Yes, it does require a few people to do this. Like, Kent's, he's an anomaly. Usually he's kind of doing 5 people's jobs. But what's happening is, we've noticed with anything, 3 people's jobs.
No,
What we're noticing with anything. Oh, I didn't see the other hand.
Yeah.
What we're noticing though is that companies are seeing these things. Like what we're experiencing, what you're experiencing with us, is early stage. We're tinkering with things in the format that they are. But it's not going to stay like this forever. It's going to get better. It's going to get more efficient. There are more engineers working on integrating these types of skills and services and levers, all the buttons that Ken's pushing in the background to make this work. At some point, it's going to maybe just be available on the mobile phone. Who knows? Like, oh, I can click this on and I can pull myself in. But the thing is to get in the game. The thing is to get in the game. The thing is to start, is to try, is to lean in. And we've got a ton of content down below which talks about overcoming your fear. Just, Ken's got some great talks down below about getting in the game, just trying, just, even if you're not a technologist, things are getting a little more accessible. So what we're doing with the best way to do it is to role model it. And this is what we're doing here with this show. And what we're doing with our clients is demonstrating. And as soon as we demonstrate something, like we're demonstrating to you and we've demonstrated in this program, we're hoping, Kent and I are hoping, it's going to just trigger something in your imagination. Even if it's that you walk away from this show with this question: how do they do that? I want to research. Well, reach out to us because we'll help you, of course.
Yeah, the quick YouTube comments are the best way to do that. I literally check them every day. If I may interject really quickly.
Yeah, please do.
I want to share something that happened on YouTube, and I'm going to try to find it really quick and not break anything while I do so. But I got my favorite YouTube comment, I think, of all time over the last couple of days. So let me just go find that really quick. Sorry, everybody. This isn't scripted. We kind of ad-libbed this show, so quite a bit. But I really just want to share this one with you. So just give me one moment to get over into the studio, and then get over to the comments. Okay, and then clear the filter. All right. I'm going to read this verbatim. This comment comes to us live, or it came to us one day ago from someone named Alex. Alex says, and I quote, "Dude, you deserve a Peace Prize for sharing this. I have been going bonkers for over a month now trying to figure out what setup would do this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Liked and subscribed. I even signed in," he means to YouTube, "specifically so I could like and subscribe your channel." Now, this was on a video that's teaching someone how to add music to a Zoom call so they can run a fitness class. Okay? And that thing is getting quite a lot of traffic. But the point is, and I'm just building on what Kyle's saying, if you want us to think about something or look at something or treat something as a either in the live show, if possible, or in a recorded show like that particular piece, YouTube comments is the easiest way to do that for us by a large margin, because we simply pay a lot of attention to that. Now, as we're going live on more channels constantly, Facebook, Twitter, and others, Twitch, you can leave the comments anywhere. We will get them. But the idea is that I really want to say thank you to Alex and to all those folks out there who have gotten us up there. I was watching, Kyle, and this guy named, what is his name? He's the Swedish guy who got really famous on America's Got Talent recently. Shoot, I'm totally blowing it. His music's amazing. But anyway, he was on. He did a YouTube show yesterday, and he got a package in the mail from YouTube, and it was in a black box with a YouTube Play logo. And he opens it up, and it was YouTube sending him this really beautiful plaque for his wall for getting his 100,000th subscriber. Amazing. Well, we're at 78. so We know how exponentials work, Kyle. So it's good. We're almost there.
Well, here's something interesting. For those of you that like any of Gary Vee's content, that's somebody I enjoy watching who has had his finger on the pulse for a lot of trends and where things are going. What he was saying is that right now, TikTok for generations like ours is the next platform that we really should be putting content into, which I believe, because that's where you can actually get subscribers really fast. Where it's harder is on things like Instagram and especially YouTube, which is why we will constantly be shameless and self-promote to, if this content resonates with you, please send it to other people. Please do send in your comments. Please do send in your questions that you would like resolved. If there's stuff you want us to see us tackle, super important. But what he was saying is that to get to the 100 is actually quite tough. It's actually quite tough. Like that 100 marker is a big thing, and then the next one, obviously, like 1,000 marker is a big thing, even on views. And I know that the Zoom video, sorry, not the music one down below that you had a lot of traction, and it was our first over 1,000 views on a video. And what's interesting for us is where there's general knowledge, and then there is, which we want to constantly give. We always want to give the context and the framing, but dropping into very specific things that will solve your needs and for us to go and experiment on. And especially Kent, who loves to problem solve in the technology world, like, how do I fix this? How do I make these two things speak to each other? How do I find a pathway to get this thing to this thing? And we've got quite a few clients right now who are pinging us for where they're saying, I'm in Zoom, or I've got this event, or I've got this thing going on, and I want to create this kind of experience. How do I do that? And what's very interesting is we're getting first time questions. No one's really gone out intentionally to try and crack the code on this. It's brand new. So the things that's happening for a lot of us and for us is that we're saying, oh, well, we never thought about doing it that way, because no one's going out there actively trying to do it in that way. But somebody got this idea and said, well, what if I take this thing and I smush it with this thing and I bang it in with this thing and present it this way? Can you do it? And we're like, I'm sure it's possible. So let's go and figure out and crack the code. So if you've got things that you're dreaming of, and they're beyond the limitations of what you see is possible in the world right now, please let us know, because the chances are we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
We'll try.
Figure out how to unlock that potential and that digital potential. Kent, you were going to jump in there.
I want to throw in one thing here. We mentioned this earlier in the show, and one of the things that I'm just really excited about is being able to convene people, being able to use the power of this technology to bring people together. And Kyle, you said something very nice to me the other day. Thanks for that. You said, you're kind of living in your purpose, and I really had reflected on that after you said it, because I don't think about it that way all day every day. That'd be kind of weird. But what you meant was, he was talking about my massive transformative purpose, which is to empower people with technology. And the work that we're doing, especially the work that we did most recently, at least with EXO World Live, was EXO World Live was, I did that it was awesome. I got to do that for thousands and thousands of people at scale, and then downstream digital content that came out of that. But what I just want to share is that based on the success of that event, we've got another one coming up, and it's a digitized produced event called EXO World Now. So we had the summit, the festival, and now we're getting together and we're going to be pushing much harder and then out into regional areas for how and what and which tools and what people, where's the money, what is it you need, to drive this stuff home. So the first ever EXO World Now event is on May 12th. You can find information about it at the website exoworld.live/now and check it out. We just published this we just opened this door, if you will, yesterday. So I'm very excited about that, and it's I just want to share it, because if you just go to the EXO World Live site and scroll down and just don't worry about what I say, look at what all the people who went to the summit say, and you will see that in some cases they were transformed, their lives were transformed, and that is while we're stuck at home, that is with COVID-19 rampaging around the world. We can still affect positive change and drive meaningful impact. And I'm pretty thrilled to get to do that on a day-to-day basis. It does make me stay up all night sometimes, which I don't like as much, but that's okay. And I really wanted to throw that in there, Kyle, because
Yeah.
we're getting to make a difference. And all things aside, I had a call I haven't even gotten to tell you about late last night. It's cool. So looking forward to that. And why don't you close us out and wrap us up on another episode of Digitized Live. This is episode 8, Kyle.
Yeah, it's been good. We've been at this, and that shows you because we kicked off. This is 8th episode. That means we've been at this for 8 weeks, almost 2 months, which is quite incredible what's been accomplished in the last 2 months. These inbound calls, these amazing client opportunities that we're working with right now, and to be honest with you, this, although we've been doing things in alternative worlds in this, when Kent and I came together for this one, I keep reminding him how fast this is moving because literally 10 weeks ago, we're sipping tea, scratching on pieces of paper in a really funky little tea shop out in Northern California, Fairfax. And 10 weeks later, we have a show with all the content below. We have, events that have been produced. Thousands and thousands of people have been brought together. Hundreds of speakers have been given access to new audiences. New technology has been figured out. New features and functions and platforms. Things have been hacked together, duct taped, and all the rest of it. But what's super interesting in this forcing function in this pandemic, it's very interesting that if we compare a year ago to how much impact we were making just in getting on airplanes and flying around and still dealing with the organizations and the intact teams versus the impact that we're making to date 1 year later, in really it is exponential times 1,000. It's not just 10x. It's crazy just in such a short space of time, how many human beings that where Kent is living his purpose, I'm living my purpose in unlocking extraordinary potential and activating and really empowering people with technology, what you can do. And that's just us. We're 2 guys doing a thing, plus a whole bunch of people that are around us. The team is big. There's a lot of roles in this, but what's interesting is that it just takes getting together and feeding off of each other and starting to build something and shooting for big purpose. So anybody watching, don't wait anymore. Get up, get out, go push yourself, push your thinking, push your possibilities. It is incredible, the opportunity right now. As much as it's a pandemic and it's real and people are hurting, there's also on the other side of this, there's a massive opportunity for you to find out just what you're made of and what potential you have inside of us. So thank you so much for joining the show. Again, episode 8, high five to us. Digitize, it's about unlocking your digital potential. It's about doing some voodoo on your mind and empowering you with the right tools and capabilities so that you get out there and start to really push. So we're looking forward to seeing you next week, same time. Please look back during the week for the extra content. Give us your hardest questions that you'd like us to solve. We would be absolutely fascinated, and we will see you at a Digitized event soon.
Signing off. Thank you, Kyle, as always, as a wonderful co-host. Until next time.